guys, it's Kim here and welcome back to Ask Kim, the series where you ask me questions and I answer them, even if they're weird and strange and I have no idea what you're asking. So without further ado, let's get away with question number 1, which comes from Ginger Ferret. Would you ever consider making videos about Malaysia and Malaysian culture? Maybe you should teach us about Malaysian national holidays and traditions. Would that work? Would you guys want that? I don't know. Would you want it? Because, I mean, obviously my channel is traditionally a gaming channel, but I have done the odd kind of outside of that video, like when I did my vlogs from when I went to Japan a couple of years ago. And then I did that Chinese New Year special one, if you don't remember. Links in the video description below. Yeah, would you be interested in this? I don't know. I mean, obviously, now is probably the perfect time to have done one because when this video goes out, I will still be in Malaysia, probably on the last day of my holiday, and I probably should have like filmed some stuff, but I decided because I hadn't been back in 3 years I wasn't going to take a camera so I could just relax. So yeah, I've really blown that opportunity. Good job, current me, past me, future me, one of those. Yeah, let me know if you would be interested in that, and I could probably do something in the UK. Yeah. Sort of following on from that, Silent Reaper asks, have you ever experienced anything you would deem paranormal? I ask this because you're quite big into horror and the Oriental Asian cultures are very indulgent on their ghosts and spirits. I'm not sure if Malaysia also has a rich spiritual culture, but I would like to hear about anything you have experienced. Oh my god, so this is quite topical. So right now in Malaysia is the Hungry Ghost Festival, and this happens around this time, August, and it's actually a festival that is celebrated by a lot of Southeast Asian countries. I don't know if anywhere else specifically calls it the Hungry Ghost Festival, bar in Malaysia, but yeah, it's basically a kind of month-long festival of where dead spirits come back and walk the world. Yeah. So it's pretty cool. It's basically, so Chinese and Taoist and Buddhism, and a lot of Southeast Asian cultures believe a lot in honouring the dead and honouring your ancestors. One such thing is a celebration called Qingming, which is where you go and you sweep out your ancestors' tomb, gravestone. A lot of people are cremated, so they have like like an urn in a crematorium that has, you know, all these urns and shrines and spirit tablets, that kind of thing. And that is generally earlier in the month, towards the end of Chinese New Year, I believe. But because I'm never back for that time, I tend to go and do that kind of thing when I'm home, whenever I manage to make it home. So I will have been doing that now that I'm in Malaysia currently. Yeah. But yeah, specifically Hungry Ghost Festival is quite fun. There's always a lot of shows going on, so a lot of dances, a lot of opera, things like that. And one of the cute things about that is there's a lot of superstitions going around, because obviously this is when the dead are kind of walking around the world. So there's a lot of funny suspicions, like you're not meant to go swimming because drowned souls may take your body so they may be reborn. And you can't do things like, I don't know, if you pick up a coin off the floor, because that might have been like someone's offering or something like that. What else? Oh, if you go to a festival or a show or something like that, there tends to be red seats marked at the front. Do not sit in those. Those are meant for the spirits to kind of get front row seats. So they can see the show. So if you sit in them, you're probably going to get a bit sick or, you know, bad luck or cursed or something like that. So there's lots of kind of superstitions and traditions. And generally, so I'm from Penang. In Georgetown tends to be where all the celebrations happen for the Ghost Festival. And I think there's some big celebrations this year. I need to read up on what we're doing, although, like, yeah, I'm recording this before I'm on holiday, so I will have done them by this point. But yeah, there'll be a lot of burning joss sticks, like really huge, massive human-sized joss sticks. Burning what they call these bank hell notes, which are fake money that you burn that gives them money, gives your ancestors money in the afterlife to spend on, you know, whatever they're spending on in the afterlife. And you basically pray and make offerings of food, that kind of thing. I heard, like, I don't know if this is a thing, but I heard that at the end of the festival, you make offerings of sticky buns. So the ghosts will eat the sticky buns and then go to the river to wash their hands. And then obviously because they can't see their reflection in the river, they're like, oh yeah, I'm dead. goodbye and go back to, you know, where they come. There's a specific day in the Hungry Ghost Festival where the gates of heaven and hell open and all the gods, spirits, people, commoners alike come out for a night. So I guess it's quite similar to other countries' celebrations of the dead. So I'm thinking of like the Day of the Dead and Halloween probably in the West, that kind of thing. So there's that kind of thing. So that is like really big in Malaysian and, well, most Buddhist Taoist cultures. As for specific scary encounters I've not had anything particularly hair-raising or anything like that. My mum has had a couple of weird things. Like she said that, so when she went to school, she went to a convent school, so British-run school with nuns. And this was after World War II, and Malaysia was in World War II, was occupied, and Penang was occupied, and Japanese soldiers, did a couple of beheadings and executions, that kind of thing. And she said that she remembers going into classroom early and seeing a sister at the nuns were teachers, seeing a sister at the blackboard writing something on the blackboard. And she went, "Oh, sorry, sister, sorry to disturb you." And when the sister turned around, there was nothing in her cowl. Like, so there was no face, but kind of like a black smudge. So mum just ran out and, just didn't go back to lessons for that day. She also said, I think her friend saw beheaded heads in the girls' toilets in the school. Whether or not that's true remains to be seen. I have a feeling now I don't know if it was a ghostly thing or just, where I was at the time, but when my Malaysian grandmother passed away, unfortunately I couldn't return to Malaysia to say goodbye to her and go to a funeral. But I went to, so at the time I was living in Milton Keynes, and there's actually a Buddhist temple there, and I went there late at night because I couldn't sleep. I went there late at night and I went and sat, and it was due to the time difference, it was about the time that my ama was being cremated, and I was feeling a bit sorry for myself. And I remember looking out, I was sat with my back to the pagoda, and I was looking out, there was a lake, and I remember seeing a figure down by the lake that was about the right size as my grandmother, and about the right, she had this puffy white hair. And I just had this feeling that she was looking at me, and I felt like all the kind of goosebumps go up on my arms and the hair on the back of my neck standing up, and I couldn't stop looking at this figure. And then I blinked, and she wasn't there. Now, I don't know if that was just me feeling something out of my grief, or seeing something out of my grief, or wanting to see something out of my grief. But Malaysians do have this belief that when someone passes away, their spirit will come and say goodbye to everyone in the family before they go. So I like to think that, for me, especially at the time, I like to think that she came over to say goodbye to me, even though obviously she was in Malaysia. So I don't know whether or not that was really a ghost, or if it was just me reacting to the situation at the time and the grief that I was going through at the time. But I take a little bit of comfort from that. So, I take it with a pinch of salt, but I take a bit of comfort from that. So yeah, nothing really super scary or spooky for me. But yeah, I've kind of done what question number 1 asked, and given you a little bit about tradition Malaysian culture. So there you go. 2 birds, 1 stone. So moving on from the horror theme, Wobblet asks, "I was absolutely delighted to find out that you're a fan of Uzumaki by Junji Ito, as he is one of my absolute favourite manga artists, and I've read pretty much all his work. My question is, have you read any of his other works, such as Gyo, Tomi, Museum of Terror, etc.? And apart from Uzumaki, what is your favourite of his works? Mine would without a doubt be Lovesick Dead." So yeah, Junji Ito, I've talked a lot about him, especially because he was rumoured to be, involved with PT, at least in a background sort of way. I love Uzumaki. It's so weird. I read another short story about him, the Terror of the Hollow Mountain or something. It was something to do with a mountain. It was amazing. I've started reading Gyo, and it's so wonderfully weird. I love it. Uzumaki probably still is my favourite, just because it was the first manga of his that I read. However, my friend very generously has sent me this, which is his latest piece of work, which is Fragments of Horror, and it's a kind of collection of short stories, horror stories that he's penned, and they kind of go from the grotesque to the more thoughtful to the really freaking weird. And I read this in one evening because I just could not stop reading it. So if you're a fan of horror and bizarre horror, I highly recommend this. This is also his first manga, I think, for 8 years or something. He says so in the back. 8 years ago, yeah. So it is great to see him kind of back to publishing. And yeah, I absolutely love this. As you can kind of see already, it's quite weird on the cover. But yeah, love it. Next question from Swikazy. What was the first horror game you ever played? Does anything you play these days on Fright Night compare to it? So I was thinking a long time over this one, and I couldn't quite remember what my first horror game is, but the first one to make an impression was probably Eternal Darkness on the GameCube. And I loved it because it was almost like a time-traveling game where it was very Lovecraftian, and you kind of played different characters through the ages who came up against these Lovecraftian creatures, and some of them perished, some of them went on to kind of be wrapped up into this legacy, and it was all tied into this one girl in the modern time who just inherited this mansion from her grandfather who's been brutally murdered, and you just explore the mansion and you find all these creepy, crazy things, and I absolutely loved it. I had to play it with my friend, my best friend, so she didn't really she doesn't play video games, but she liked watching me play video games. So I remember I used to go to her house and we ended up like mainlining it in one day. Her parents had gone away, and it was quite funny because she lived in an old creaky house, so that added to it, and it was the day that there was a massive storm and a power cut in the house, so it added to the ambience, and we were just sat there playing the whole thing. So that definitely, I love it, and I know the Eternal Darkness team are trying to make a Kickstarter for another game, but unfortunately it's not been very successful. As to whether or not any other horror game has lived up to it, that's a really difficult one to say. I'd say probably not, because I was a lot younger then, so I was a lot more scared of things, and it was one of my first horror games, so I hadn't experienced kind of what horror games were like. I've never played anything that has encapsulated that same feeling, and also I haven't seen anything that's been a good Lovecraftian horror for a while. The other game actually that rings a bell is Project Zero, or Fatal Frame if you're in the US, which was a Japanese one where you were armed only with a camera and you had to take pictures of ghosts to stop them from killing you, which was terrifying. That was on PS2, I believe, when it came out in this country, and again, absolutely no game, even sequels in the Project Zero franchise, have never touched that first Project Zero that I played. There is a new one though coming out on the Wii U, so I can't wait for that to come out because it is actually looking quite promising. Moving away from horror, Desolate Kirby asked, what sort of music do you enjoy? I love any kind of music. So when I grew up, I kind of listened to a lot more kind of rock, Britpop, pop, just general, anything that was on the radio. When I used to move to uni, I kind of just my brain exploded because I was introduced to so many cultures, because I had a lot of international students with me, and also I was in Liverpool, which is, a pretty good place in the UK for music. So literally all kinds of music, any genre, no matter how niche or anything, I listen to a lot. I listen to a lot of punk, so like the Misfits, Black Flag, Strung Out. I listen to a lot of, Muse, Marilyn Manson are probably my bands that I kind of have listened to consistently all the way from when I first started kind of getting into music to now. I love my cheese, I love my pop, I love electro pop, I love 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s. I love old school kind of big band. I love crooners like Frank Sinatra, Perry Como, Billie Holiday, Queen, big fan of Queen. What am I listening to at the moment? Obviously I've been listening to a lot of J-pop, K-pop, Chinese pop at the moment. Crazy stuff like Baby Metal and, what's the other guy? with the beard, Lady Beard, that's it. So literally anything and everything I will listen to. A while ago, I was messing around and I was kind of listening to Feel Good Pop, and I asked you guys to tweet me your favourite songs. So I created this massive playlist, specifically Feel Good playlist. So I'll put a link in the video description below. It's on Spotify. So this is kind of like a playlist of feel good songs that you guys contributed, and I have been listening to this a lot because it does bring a big grin to my face. It's pretty eclectic, so a lot of, you know, genres on there, a lot of time zones on there, but yeah, I've been listening to that and bopping around to that quite a lot. So yeah, any and all music. On the same kind of thing, Deadstar182, being a fan of the band Muse, have you ever seen them live at a gig? If not, what are some bands you've seen? Deadstar, I see what you've done there. That's one of Muse's lesser known songs. Yes, I have seen them. I've seen them about 5 or 6 times. The first time was at Reading Festival 2002 or something. Oh my god, that was crazy. I literally just went there for the day to see them for that, and I lost my mind. I've seen them at the O2 Arena, I've seen them at the NEC, I've seen them, you know, from small places all the way up to big arena shows. Other kind of bands that I've seen, Blink-182, Sugar Cult, yeah, because they were supporting them. One band that I've missed out on is My Chemical Romance. I do have a bit of a guilty soft spot for My Chemical Romance, and I would have loved to have seen them during My Black Parade tour, because I love anyone who puts on a stage show. By that token as well, I would have loved to have seen Marilyn Manson as well, because he puts on an amazing stage show. I saw him from a distance at one Leeds festival, but unfortunately my boyfriend at the time was a bit of a dickhead and wouldn't let me get any closer than that. So I saw Marilyn Manson from a distance on his stilts and that kind of thing, but yeah, unfortunately I wasn't allowed to go and see the rest of the show, so I'm really bummed out that I didn't really get to properly see that. Other bands, recently I went to go see Strung Out at the Bristol O2, and that was a lot of fun. Yeah, really enjoyed that one. They were also on with Lagwagon and Alkaline Trio as well, because I went mostly to go see Strung Out, and Strung Out was supporting Lagwagon and Alkaline Trio, and I hadn't listened to Alkaline Trio in about 10 years, and I was like, I sent a text to my friend going, Alkaline Trio look really old now. Or does that mean I'm really old now? Oh god, we're old now. When I was in Liverpool, I saw a lot of smaller bands, especially because I used to be a sound engineer that specialised in live sound, so putting on the live shows. So I saw a lot of bands that way for free. I ended up helping out with Dizzy Rascal once at the Manchester Carling Academy, Liverpool Carling Academy. I don't know if it's been renamed since. So yeah, I ended up helping out with Dizzy Rascal, All American Rejects. My first big live band that I ever worked on stage with as their monitor engineer, so they're the people who work the monitors on the stage so the band can hear themselves, was Hell is for Heroes. And I remember doing that at the Roadmenders in Northampton many years ago, and that was insane as a gig, mainly because I loved Hell is for Heroes, but also to work with them and literally have the best seat in the house, which was right behind them on the stage, behind one of the speaker stacks. And then the singer at the end came and gave me a big sweaty hug, and it was gross, but also amazing, but gross. I also worked with, I can't remember, you know, it was a lot of bands that kind of came and went. So yeah, I do enjoy live gigs. I probably don't go to the bigger shows much anymore. Like, I don't know if I would go see Muse on their new tour, just because there's a lot of people and I get a bit panicky in crowds. But yeah, I love gigs. So, final question from ZB777. Is Duncan as reckless in real life as in your Minecraft series? Pretty much, yeah. So most recently to date, I got a text from him when he was building his drones saying, I built the drone, and then as soon as I turned it on to fly it, all the blades flew off and one of them cut my hand. And I was like, you idiot. And I'm really used to getting like weird texts from him at like 1 a.m. saying, Kim, I've just done this, it's really terrible. You know, and I'm just like, please stop texting me at 1 a.m. I'm trying to sleep, asshole. You know, yeah, he's quite, I don't know. I think I think it's just because he's got so many thoughts in his head. He is literally like a mad scientist in real life. He's just going off in random directions, and you really do have to kind of get him to focus sometimes and just like, Duncan, I really need an answer on this, okay? Like, we need an answer about flux bodies or something like that. And he goes off and thinks about something else, and you're like, Duncan, that's not the question. Can we come back and try and focus on this? So yeah, he's a lovable scamp, but he does do insanely bizarre, reckless, crazy things in real life. But, you know, he's a bit of a hippie like that. You know, he's from the West Country and he's a total hippie. So let him be free and just, you know, try and patch up the wounds when he cuts his hands on drone blades again. So there you go, guys. That's it for today. Thank you so much for your questions. When I do the next one, I will again tweet about it and put a thread up on my subreddit. If you're not looking at my subreddit, go head over there now. So thank you very much for your questions, and I'll see you all next time.